You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristadoulou, and today, as we're doing every single Thursday, we're going over picks for all 13 of this week's slate of games, going over my winners, some of the score predictions I have, and even some of the betting odds that I really like looking at some of these games here. So let's sit down and talk about these teams, and make sure you comment down below. Let me know who you think is coming out winners and losers in this week's matchups. I would love to hear your guys' opinions and how they differ from mine. So diving right in, we'll look at tonight's Thursday night matchup between the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the LA Rams in LA. This is a game where you have a team right now in the LA Rams that just brought in Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of question marks at quarterback right now because John Wolford may or may not start, depending on how he feels, just kind of an up-in-the-air type of thing. Josh Jacobs on the other side of this game here is sounding like he's trending towards playing, so that is a good thing to hear for the Raiders as well. And when I look at this, you have a Rams team that is just in a spot right now where nothing has really gone their way, whereas you have the Raiders that are on quite the hot streak right now, having won the last few games they've played and taking a really big victory over the Chargers just this past week. And I guess my biggest question mark really in this game, for all the struggles that the Rams have had, they are really good at defending against the run, and that's kind of the bread and butter of the Raiders at this point in the season, is they have a really strong running game behind that offensive line, and of course carried on the back by Josh Jacobs himself, who is going to be playing. So with that in mind, do I really think the Rams can come out winners in this game? Honestly, I think they have a better shot if John Wolford's playing than if it's Baker Mayfield. And it's not because I don't think that Baker Mayfield could be a serviceable guy for them the rest of the way. It's just, he just got there a few days ago, and I don't really know how ready he could really be. And I would take the experience of Wolford being in the system with McVay over just the potential upside that maybe the talent Baker Mayfield has over Wolford just in general as a quarterback. So I think I'm going to go with the Raiders in this game here. The Raiders are -6.5 favorites, so they're fairly heavily favored in this game here. The over-under for this game is actually set at only 43 as well. I don't really expect it to be a massively high-scoring game. I just don't think that the Rams defense is going to really bend over that much. I think they're, again, solid unit, and their strength is against the run, so things might slow down a little bit for the Raiders, but the Raiders are in the top 10 in terms of scoring. They average just over 24 points a game, so there's a possibility we see a little bit of scoring here, but not anything too crazy. But I do like the Raiders, and I think that if I was to take a score on this game here, I could see something along the lines of like 24-17 or so, give or take, something like that. That -6.5, definitely doable, I would say, for the Raiders, considering just the struggles offensively that the Rams have. They're not even averaging 17 points a game. So I definitely think for a team that's averaging about that touchdown or so, that's where I'm getting that 24-17 mark from. Something along those lines, but I do like the Raiders coming away with the victory in that one. The next game that we're looking at here, we are looking at the Jets taking on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo with a massive spread in their favor at -10 favorites. I've got to say, I did not expect the spread to be this far apart. And, you know, considering Von Miller is now out for the season and the Bills are dealing with some injuries, and the Jets are as well, to be fair, I just didn't expect it to be this far apart. Now, do I think the Jets could come away and win this game? Possibly. They did beat the Bills earlier in the season, so there is definitely that possibility that the Jets come away and steal another victory here, especially with this being in Buffalo. You know, stakes are high. You know, maybe the Jets come in with a little extra oomph in it, but at the end of the day, this Jets team is not the Jets team that played Buffalo earlier in the season, and I say that offensively more than anything else. Breece Hall is now out, and for as fun as Mike White is as like the guy right now with the turmoil that's going around Zach Wilson, I just think there's a little too much going on outside the scope of football for me to really believe in the Jets going into this game. So I do think I'm going to settle on the Buffalo Bills here. They are still one of the best teams in the league in terms of just what they can do on the field. And I mean, their record shows for it at 9-3. I just, you know, it's hard for me to buy in on the Jets, and I understand they won against Buffalo already, and there's a piece of me that feels like, you know, maybe this is one of those shock upsets of the week, because if I had to pick one, I feel like this would be the game for it. But for everything that's going on in New York, it's hard to buy in for that right now. They're in a really tough spot, and the future is up in the air with Zach Wilson right now. Mike White had a great first game and then a meh second game, so I guess this one will kind of decide the fate of Mike White going forward in New York, and I feel like if this game goes really south for the Jets, we're probably going to see Zach Wilson sooner than later back in the fold. If Mike White does well and, at least handles his own and keeps the Jets competitive, maybe it keeps that quarterback controversy brewing a little bit longer. But right now, with just the way these two teams stack up, the Bills are going to have their work cut out for them passing the football, but I do think they get the job done, and I have Buffalo winning this game. It's going to be, I think, a little bit lesser of a scoring affair. The over-under for this one's set at 43.5, which kind of aligns with my thought process on this, because the Jets do have a really good defense, and I think they can slow down Buffalo here, and vice versa. The Jets offense at their best, I think, is good for somewhere around 20 some odd points in this game. And at their worst, they're looking at like barely scratching 10. I like the Bills. Give me something along the lines of like 23 to, I would say, about 14. I could see Buffalo winning maybe by that 10-point margin. This is one where like I'm not super sold on the spread, but I could definitely see the Bills winning by 10, but I like something a little bit closer than that. So give me that like 23 to 14 range where they're just underneath that 10-point margin, but they still win fairly comfortably. Next game we have is the Browns and the Bengals. And in the previous meeting here, the Browns absolutely whacked the Bengals 32-13 in Cleveland. For this one here, the Bengals are -6 favorites at home, and the over-under is set for 47. It feels like a little bit high considering the struggle we kind of saw from the Browns offense last week. If it's hitting the over in this game, this is one of those scenarios where it's like, it's going to be flipped, and the Bengals are dropping like 35 points, and I think Cleveland is somewhere around the like anywhere from 13 to 20 point range, give or take, somewhere around there, depending on if their offense can at least find some improvement after what last week showed. So I'm not going to sit here and completely write off the Browns because apparently there was something that went on that in that first meeting to result in that score. I don't necessarily know what the answer is behind how that game was so lopsided in the Browns' favor. It was in Cleveland, but I don't think home field advantage amounts to a blowout from the Browns side of things against the Bengals. There's got to be more to it than that, whether it was just a mismatch or a looking past it kind of thing. I don't really know, but I do think Cincinnati, with where they are right now in the season, they just look really good. They're clicking on all cylinders. They have not lost a game since that blowout loss. They are 4-0. And they're rolling right now. They're hot coming off that Chiefs victory. And while Cleveland did come away with a nice, comfortable victory over the Texans, it was a very ugly victory on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't know right now if Cleveland is ready to roll and go punch for punch with the way the Bengals are playing at this very moment. So I do like the Bengals. And at -6 favorites, this actually feels like something solid. I could see the Bengals winning by like 7. I'm looking at a score of like 27-20 on this one here. So I do kind of like that Bengals -6. Could Cleveland keep it a little bit closer? Yes, if their defense plays to the best of its ability, but I don't think we've seen the defense be as good as it is on paper throughout the bulk of this season as I would have liked to have seen them. So I do think the Bengals -6 feels pretty solid. The over-under at 47, this is one where I could definitely see the under hitting. Like I said, my score line's 27-20, so I'm right at that line there at 47 here, but I could definitely see it going towards the under, so don't be too surprised if this ends up being a slightly lower scoring affair, but at the same time, like I'm 50-50 on that because I could see the Bengals, like I said, dropping 35 and winning 35-20 as well, so over-under, take caution, whatever your gut's telling you on that one there. Next game we're looking at, we have ourselves the Texans visiting Dallas. And this is insane because I don't know if I've ever seen a spread this big before, at least since I've started kind of following betting and what I've looked back on. This is a massive number here. The Cowboys are -17 favorites. Like this is like some college type of stuff that you see where like it's like Alabama taking on some no-name school and they're favored by like 24 points or something like that. -17 is a lot in the NFL. Moneyline has the Cowboys at -2,000. Over-under is at 44, and if I had to guess, that would be like 44 if Dallas was putting up 34 and the Texans managed to find their way into the end zone maybe once and kick a field goal late in the game or something like that. So I don't really think this is going to be close. I really don't have a ton of thought put into this game here. it's the Texans, and I've been saying this, I feel like week in and week out, they're kind of just working their way towards the number 1 overall pick at this point here. I feel like that's kind of set in stone at this point. They have far and away kind of been the bottom team of the NFL, and with the Dallas Cowboys being arguably one of the best teams in the league at this moment here, with one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL, I don't really see how Houston comes away with a victory in this one here. So I don't know about minus 17, but if you have the money to blow for the money line, it is minus 2,000. But if you got money to blow, that feels like one of the most sure bets we've had in some time. If you got money, I'd go for it, I guess. But $2,000 to win 100, I don't know. But Dallas all day. I think they win by a significant margin. If I was to give a score, give me like 28 to 10. Something like that. So I guess I like minus 17, but 28 to 10, something like that. I don't expect a lot from the Texans. And honestly, I'm probably underselling what the Cowboys can do offensively against this Texans team. Next game we're looking at is going to be the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions. This was a game that was pretty close the last time these two teams met. The Vikings came away with a victory 28-24. Over-under on this one is set at 52. And honestly, I believe it. And crazy enough, at the time of me recording this, the Lions are actually favored in this game as -2 favorites. Kind of wild, if you ask me. I cannot believe that is the case, considering how good Minnesota has been this year. But when you look at the fact that Minnesota's passing defense is the 32nd ranked defense in the league, and the Lions have, and Jared Goff even said it himself. Jared Goff's probably playing some of the best quarterbacking he has in his entire career, and you can take that for what it's worth. But this Lions offense can move through the air, and with Jamison Williams now in the fold, things could probably get a little bit out of hand for defenses going up against the Lions. And I'm not going to call the upset here, because even though they're -2 favorites, I think it's still an upset, even if it is in Detroit, that they win this game. At this point, Minnesota is very battle-tested. They've gone against some really good teams this year and have come out victorious. I think, what is it, like 8 or 9 one-score victories at this point through the year? Like, it's kind of a crazy tear. They have been able to get the job done and finish teams off that people wrote them off for, myself included in some instances, like that game against the Bills. I don't think anyone had them, I don't want to say anyone, but there was a lot of people that really were riding the Bills in that game. So this is a battle-tested unit. It's going to be up to the Vikings, though, to be able to figure out a way to slow down this Bengals offense. I could definitely see the over-under being hit on this, or for the over-under on this one being finished off as an over, because, 28-24 was the last score that these two teams met at. So what is that? 28-24. That is 52. So could I see something like that happening again? Absolutely. The Lions just put up 40 points last week, and they've dropped 35-plus points a few times this season. As for the Vikings, they're averaging themselves about 24 points a game as well. I just have a hard time believing that this game ends up being an under, even with it being at 52. I like the over on this one here for sure. As for my final score and who I think is going to win, I'm going to take Minnesota in this game here. I just ultimately think that they have more talent, and they should be the team that comes out victorious here. And I'm a big fan of that Vikings +2. I kind of like that they're considered underdogs in terms of betting here, because listen, I understand the game was close, and the Lions offense is what it is, but if their defense even just figures it out, and they're one of the best when it comes to forcing turnovers, they're third in the league right now in turnover differential. They're +3. So a team that knows how to turn the football over, if the Vikings can even take advantage of a mistake or two and just, keep getting into the end zone like they can, this is a game I expect the Vikings to win. If I had to pick a score, I'm looking at something along the lines of like 30-27, something like that, where it hits the over, high-scoring affair. It's another closer one because I think the Lions can keep up, and it's going to come down to the Vikings just forcing an error or two. Next game, we have ourselves the Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this one here, you have two teams in kind of a weird spot. So the Titans are coming off of a complete dismantling at the hands of the Eagles, and then the Jaguars are coming off of a complete dismantling against the Lions we were just talking about. However, I think Jacksonville is in a spot right now where they're better off losing than they are winning at this point in the season. You're sitting at 8 losses, and they're 1-5 in away games as it is. I don't really expect Jacksonville to be too competitive in some of the games they have remaining on their schedule here. And the Titans are a team that, well, yeah, they have had a couple of really bad blowout losses to some of the best teams in the league, being the Bills and the Eagles now. I still consider them in that like top half of the NFL, and even maybe closer to like the top third of the NFL, somewhere around there. I just don't know how the Jacksonville Jaguars match up against this Titans defense, against the Titans offense that can run the ball fairly effectively. I will say that Jacksonville, on their own, pretty solid unit against the run. They're ranked 13th in the league, allowing only 113 yards a game. But ultimately, I guess the best thing that they really have going for them right now, the Jaguars, is that they are slightly better at scoring in terms of just points per game. They're 17th in the league compared to the Titans 26th. So, I mean, they apparently put up more points than the Titans do, but ultimately, I do trust in the Titans defense a little bit more. Both of these pass defenses are not necessarily great, and that'll be something that'll be key for the Titans to come away with a victory in this game to really try to take advantage of, is just find the soft spots in that passing D and try to exploit it. Like, obviously you have Derrick Henry, you can run the football, and you're going up against a team that's in the top half of the league when it comes to defending the run, but you have Derrick Henry, one of the best backs in the NFL, if not arguably the best back in the NFL when he's healthy and rolling. So I like the Titans. They're -4 favorites on this one here. I do expect the game to be a slightly lower scoring affair. I don't think we're going to be seeing a ton of points in this one. I like the Tennessee Titans. I think they get the job done somewhere along the lines of like 21-14, give or take, something like that. You're looking at a few touchdowns here and there from both teams, but ultimately I do think that like the Titans are like about a score better or so than the Jaguars. Next game we're looking at here, we have the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants, a massive game in the NFC East here. I've got to say, the Giants coming out with a tie last week against the Commanders, they ended up doing a really good job. I wrote them off. I had the Commanders winning that game. They held their own fairly well, and again, they came away with the tie. But now you're going up against the Philadelphia Eagles team that has just been so good across the board in so many different ways. The biggest matchup that I'm looking at in this game here when it comes to just numbers and everything and player personnel, the Giants are really good at running the football. They're 6th best in the league. They're averaging 149 yards a carry. It's going to be up to the Eagles to slow that down, because that is like the bread and butter of the New York Giants here, is just behind an offensive line that's been really good at opening running lanes, and Saquon Barkley, who has had like a career resurgence after the injuries he's dealt with. The Eagles are only ranked 17th in the NFL when it comes to defending the run. They're allowing about 117 a game, so good on them. It's going to be up to them to slow that down. I'm not really concerned about how the Eagles do against the Giants passing offense, because the Giants are not necessarily great when it comes to passing the ball. They're 28th in the league going up against the Eagles' league best. And my biggest concern ultimately for New York, and it's going to be a tall task for them to try to handle, is just the pass rush altogether from the Eagles. They average 3.5 sacks a game. They're 2nd best in the league behind only the Cowboys, another NFC East team. And the Giants are allowing about 3 sacks a game themselves. That puts them right in like the bottom 5 of the NFL. So it's going to be a tall task for the Giants to come away with a victory in this game here. I do like the Eagles, and they're -7 favorites. So do I think they're a whole score better than the Giants? Quite possibly, yeah. If I was to pick like a score line for this, something like 28-21, something like that, I think the Giants could maybe find the end zone a few times. Maybe you come away with like a defensive turnover that leads to a short field to help you get that 3rd touchdown. But I just think with how good the Eagles defense has been, and they're best in the league in turnover differential, they are +12. The Eagles force turnovers like crazy, and they don't really turn the ball over too much as well. I think you're looking at like a big mistake on the Giants' part that ultimately kind of costs them the game and leads you to that 28-21 victory by the Eagles. Next matchup we have is the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over-under for this one set at 36.5. And honestly, the under feels like a safe bet, even with that number being as low as it is. The Steelers are -2.5 favorites here. And with Tyler Huntley being QB1 for this, I do think he is like one of the best backup quarterbacks in terms of just situation that he is in replicating what your starting quarterback can do on the offense. But ultimately, this Steelers team, since TJ Watt has come back, has gotten a little bit better. And on top of that, just feels like it has a little more juice to it. TJ Watt is like the heart and soul of this defense. I feel like the Steelers without him are not the Steelers. And the Steelers always have a defensive guy or two that are kind of like that. You have also Minka Fitzpatrick, another guy you could call a similar heart and soul type of guy for this defense. Cam Hayward, another guy. So there are like people on this team there's always those guys on the defensive side, but I feel like TJ Watt is like that cut above the rest. And with him in the fold, this Steelers team is far more competitive. And while the offense is still trying to sort itself out with Kenny Pickett being under center, he's a rookie. He's going to have his ups and downs. He's learning. And there's some flaws in the O-line over there for Pittsburgh, but it's that defense that can really slow a team down. The Baltimore Ravens the last few weeks offensively has not been great and has been honestly shockingly poor. And now with Lamar Jackson out, kind of a wild card. We don't really know what we're going to get from them. So I think I'm going to go with the Steelers on the victory in this game here. And I honestly think I like the under. I could realistically see this game ending something along the lines of like 17-10. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points. 17-10, 17-13, something ugly like that. Think like the Patriots and Steelers from earlier in the year. That's kind of what we're looking at with this game here. Two young quarterbacks, a guy that's a backup, not necessarily a starter, and then a Kenny Pickett who's, just trying to figure his way around an offense that's still trying to find itself, that has like a solid running game, but not anything too crazy right now, and a passing game that's like up and down given the opponent that they're playing that week, and then a Ravens team that's kind of like a mystery at this point, where their offense was kind of slacking a bit the last few weeks, and now you lose Lamar Jackson. You're going to have to kind of see what they can be against, especially against a division rival. So low scoring affair. Steelers, I like them 17-13, 17-10, something like that. Next game we're looking at, we have the Chiefs and the Broncos. Another massive favorite here for the Kansas City Chiefs, as they are minus 9.5 favorites. And it's hard for me to not just flat out write Denver off, even though that this game is in Denver. They're 2-3 at home. There's not much of a home field advantage. The Kansas City Chiefs are 4-2 in their away games. But like the biggest thing that sticks out to me when I look at the numbers for this game here, you have the number 1 scoring offense against the number 32 scoring offense. The Chiefs are averaging just over 29 points a game, whereas the Broncos are averaging just under 14 points. It's less than 2 touchdowns a game. I just don't really know how I could sit here and realistically say I believe in Denver enough to maybe pull off an upset here. I really don't think so. And honestly, minus 9.5 kind of sounds like a lot because Denver does have a really good defense. They're the second best in terms of allowing points in a game at 17 per. But there's been so much dysfunction on the offensive side of the ball over there in Denver. At this point, they're going up against such a good offense that I don't necessarily know if Denver's defense can withstand and hang on for the duration of the 60 minutes, and I think things might get a little bit out of hand for them, and it's not their fault. I think Denver has one of the best defenses in the NFL right now, and it kills me to see that they're kind of just wasting away how good this unit is, even without Bradley Chubb. Like, it's insane how good this defense is, and they don't have necessarily the star power they had just a couple of seasons ago. Like last year, strip away Von Miller, strip away Bradley Chubb, and you still have a dominant defense in the NFL. It's kind of shocking for them to be where they are right now, but they are. But ultimately, I like the Chiefs in this game here. I think they kind of run away with this game, and I don't really blame the defense for it. I'm thinking something along the lines of like 28-13, give or take, something like that. Kansas City might find the end zone more, maybe one score less than that, but I don't really think that the Chiefs run into too much danger in this game. I think they lead the way fairly handedly. They're really good at opening up games as well. So, I mean, if Casey gets on the board within the first drive and they already have 7 right out of the gates, it's going to be hard for Denver to keep up. They have not really been able to put many points up on the board all season long, and I don't really see that starting up in week 14 of the NFL at this point. Next game we have now is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers at home with Brock Purdy as their quarterback are favorites in this game, and I kind of can't believe that. Tampa Bay is 6-6. They've had some ugly games here. The 49ers are 8-4. Their defense has been spectacular. Tampa Bay's defense, though, no slouch in their own, but the 49ers defense, best in the league in terms of points a game. They're allowing less than 16 points a game. The Buccaneers, they're allowing just over 18. So you have the number 1 and number 5 scoring defenses. And it's exciting to see because this one really, I think, is going to come down to defense in this game here because the Buccaneers offense has been very up and down this season. And whether it's, Brady overthrowing a wide open Julio Jones or Mike Evans dropping just wide open receptions in ways that I don't think we've ever really seen him do throughout the duration of his monster career that he's had so far. This one really comes down to, I think, which defense kind of outperforms the other one, because I expect this to be a battle, and I don't really see a lot of points in this one. That 37.5 is honestly kind of high for what I would set it if I was to set it myself. I just don't really see a ton of points being scored in this game because of how good these two defenses really are. Ultimately, I do think I give a slight edge, though, to the 49ers. Their pass rush is just so good and so dominant right now. Nick Bosa is an absolute terror. He's leading the league in sacks right now, and I just don't really know if Tampa Bay's offensive line is going to be up to the task of the 49ers. Now, the wild card is obviously Brock Purdy. We're going to have to see how good of a game he can play, especially against the Tampa Bay defense that I've been talking about already at length. That, pretty good unit, no slouch in their own right. If Brock Purdy can just manage the game, they have enough weapons over there in San Francisco that they're going to be fine. The biggest doubt that I've had about the 49ers all season long has been Jimmy Garoppolo. I just don't believe in him. Call me a hater, whatever you want, so be it. That's just how I feel about him. With Brock Purdy under center, he's another wild card, another question mark. He just led a really good game last week in a game that he did not expect to be playing in. Now he gets to prepare as the starter, and it sounds like the 49ers are backing him up. If he plays just solid, sound football, don't force anything, there's too much talent for that team to not be successful the rest of the way. So I like the 49ers in this one here. I don't think it's going to be a ton of points in this game. I like the 49ers. Give me 21-17, something like that. There will be a few touchdowns here and there, but I don't think a lot of points. Low-scoring affair, but a fun and interesting one from a defensive standpoint. I'm going to be really interested in seeing how this game turns out. Our next matchup here, we have the Carolina Panthers and the Seattle Seahawks. Carolina, man, 0-5 in away games. They're going up against a Seahawks team that's been pretty good this year. They've been slipping the last few weeks, though, I will say that, but they bounced back with a win last week, a much-needed victory, I would say. This one really just comes down to, can Seattle just not blow the game, ultimately? This is a game Seattle should be winning. You're going up against a team that is winless on the road. You have one of the better scoring offenses in the NFL, and the Panthers, their one strong suit is their passing defense. They're 14th in the league in terms of yards a game. Your bread and butter is basically that passing game. If you can just take advantage of a run defense that has not been very good in Carolina, I think there is a route to success for the Seahawks to win this game. They're -3.5 favorites as well. So I do think I'm going to take the Seahawks in this game here. They should come away with a victory. This is a game that if the Seahawks are going to be a playoff contender, they should be winning this game. Absolutely no reason for them to not. So I am going to take Seattle. I like them somewhere along the lines of I would say maybe 26-20, something like that. I think Carolina, considering just how poor the Seahawks defense has been at random points in this season, they had a really good stretch where they were playing really sound, but they have had some games where they've not been great. They've allowed 25 points a game. So I will say that I think Carolina is going to find a way to score a few points here and there, but ultimately I like the Seahawks again, 26-20, something along those lines. Our next matchup, we have ourselves Sunday Night Football. This is a fun one here with playoff implications on the line. We have the Dolphins taking on the Chargers in LA. The Chargers coming off of a very big blown loss last week. I think that was a game that you really needed to come away and win to really solidify yourself as a playoff contender for the season. Now you're on the fringe trying to fight your way into a spot and hoping for other teams to possibly lose. You don't necessarily control your own destiny at this point. The biggest thing that sticks out to me when I'm looking at the way these two teams match up here, it's got to be those points scored a game. Dolphins are averaging just under 25 points a game scored, whereas the Chargers are allowing just under 26. This is a game where you have a defense that everyone was hoping was going to be a lot better than it was and has just been dealing with injuries, so it's kind of slowing it down in the Chargers. And then you have a Dolphins team who they went up against a really good defense last week, and clearly there is some cracks right now in the armor of the Dolphins. Offensive line is, I don't want to say in shambles, but they're definitely not the healthiest right now. And so there is some weakness to this team, but the Dolphins are able to drop a lot of points when they get rolling here. And San Diego, and Los Angeles, I didn't even think twice about it. It just rolled off the tongue. And the Los Angeles Chargers have just not necessarily been the best on the defensive side. But if the Dolphins really want to find success in this game, it's going to be to target the run defense. Find some, look to Jeff Wilson and the rest of the guys you have, Elijah Mitchell in that backfield, and focus on those guys. See what you can open up on the ground. You have a Chargers team that can't really stop a nosebleed when it comes to the run game here. They're allowing over 150 yards a game. Take advantage of that. And I know that's Mike McDaniel's thing. He's the one that came up with the elaborate running game that they had in San Francisco last year. So focus on that. Dial into that. I want to see the Dolphins, not abandon the passing game. Don't get me wrong. That's what they do. They've been really good throwing the football, and they have two of the best wide receiver, or not two of the best, but arguably two of the best. But they have one of the best tandems of wide receivers in the NFL right now between Tyreek Hill and then Jalen Waddle. So yeah, obviously you have your passing game, but focus on that running game. Try to open things up that way so you can really take advantage of a poor, I don't want to say a poor defense, but a defense that has just not been quite where it needs to be this season. I like the Dolphins in this game. I do think they get the victory here. The Chargers have not necessarily been the best at home. Their home games don't really feel like home games. They're 2-3 this season, so not really too much to be worried about. And Tua only has one loss as a starter from beginning to end this season. So with that in mind, I like the Dolphins. I think this game ends up being a higher scoring one. It is 51.5 over under here, and I definitely think it approaches something like that. So I'm going to take the Dolphins. I would say something along the lines of I do think it goes high. I'm going to say 33-27. I like the over in this one here, and I think that with what we saw from the Dolphins defense just this past week, and also what we have seen from the Chargers this season and what these offenses can do when they're able to put up points, this one ends up being one of those higher scoring affairs. And then finally for Monday Night Football, we're looking at the Patriots in Arizona against the Cardinals, as the Patriots are -1.5 favorites here. This was one of the harder ones for me to decide, I've got to say. I really don't necessarily know who comes out the victor in this one, and I'm not really sold on my selection in this game. There's a lot to look at, and I think the biggest thing that stood out to me when I was just looking at numbers for this game, the Cardinals let up a lot of points per game, and the Patriots are not necessarily the highest scoring team in the NFL. They're 20th in the league, averaging just under 21 points a game, whereas the Cardinals are 31st in the league in points allowed, averaging just under 27. This would be a good opportunity for the Patriots offense to kind of find itself per se, and maybe kind of get the ball rolling a little bit as they try to make a stretch run towards the playoffs. I will say that I trust in the Patriots defense despite kind of some of the hiccups they've had here and there the last few weeks going against the Bills and the Vikings. You're going against offenses that are really dominant, some of the better ones in the league. You're going to have those kinds of games. But for a Cardinals team that has not necessarily been the most functional and has had some drama surrounding them all year long, I do think that the Patriots and Bill Belichick are going to be able to take advantage of that. And just from a head coaching standpoint, this is a game that I could see Bill just kind of coaching circles around the entire Cardinals as a whole. So this is a game that I really kind of believe in the Patriots. This feels like a Patriots win. I will say I am well aware that running quarterbacks give Bill Belichick problems, and I do expect that Kyler Murray is going to be no exception to that. Expect Kyler Murray to have a decent amount of yards rushing and maybe even a good chunk of yards throwing if they're really trying to focus in on keeping him contained. But I do think that the Patriots defense is good enough to slow down and mitigate whatever the Cardinals try to do here. So I'm going to go with the Patriots, and the over-under for this is 43.5. I could see it getting close to that, somewhere it's my final score. I'm looking at something like 24-23. So you're looking at 47 points. So a little bit past the over. And that even might be a little bit more than I think the final score ends up being. But I do think that the Patriots are able to bounce back, take advantage of the Cardinals defense that hasn't necessarily been the most impressive in the NFL. And you have a Cardinals team with a running quarterback who I know is probably going to give Bill a couple of issues here and there. It's just kind of like his MO. It's been a career-long thing for him. I think he struggles defending running quarterbacks, and I don't really think that's going to change starting this week. So 24-23, I like the Patriots. It's going to be a tight one there. -1.5. I don't really know about betting the spread on this one. I would take a money line bet on this. Go with the Patriots if you feel like they're going to win, or the Cardinals. This is a very tight game here. Whatever your gut is telling you, take a money line bet on this one here, because you only got to bet $125 to win $100 if you're betting on Patriots, and if you bet $100 on the Cardinals, you get $105 back. So, Not bad. But that's it for me. Those are my picks for week number 14. I appreciate you guys. If you stuck around all the way through, make sure that like button, subscribe button helps support the channel. But I will see you all next time. Thank you all for watching. Have a good one.